Okay, we're going to look at resizing our images, but within Photo we refer to what we're working on as the document which contains the image as a layer. So to get started with resizing, we can go to Document and Resize Document. So we have a few options here. We can choose the measurement units, for example, but for now we'll stick with pixels. And by default, the document's aspect ratio is constrained. We can, of course, unconstrain it by clicking the little lock icon here. But if I turn it on and just demonstrate, I'll set the height to 2560 pixels, and we'll see it calculates the width automatically. Vice versa, if I set width to 2560 pixels, it will calculate the height. So we'll just talk briefly about the DPI. Now this is more relevant if we're using a metric measurement like inches. For example, if I want a 4x3 inch print, Photo will calculate the appropriate pixel resolution for that size based on the current DPI value. Let me show you. If I switch to inches and I set 4 for the width, let it calculate the height, I could then put the DPI at 200. Now if I switch back across to pixels, we'll see our resolution in pixels has reduced to 800 by 600 because that's the resolution required to produce a 4-inch by 3-inch print at 200 dpi. If I switch back across to inches and then I bump the DPI up to say 600 and then move back to pixels, we'll see it's increased the pixel resolution to account for the higher DPI. Now next we come to the resampling options. This allows us to pick the method used for resampling or scaling the image. Now generally speaking, they go from softest to sharpest. Bicubic is recommended for most use cases as it provides a nice balance between soft and sharp. The two Lanczos options will produce sharper results, and they're great if you want pin-sharp detail. Just be aware though that the sharper the resampling, the greater the chance of edge artifacting, like ringing and haloing. If you find the edges in your images are developing almost like an outline effect, you should try a softer method, like bicubic. And if your image contains a lot of fine, high-frequency detail, you may find detail looks a bit too sharp when resampling. In this case, I'd recommend you try bilinear. I would generally avoid nearest neighbor unless you're working with pixel art or imagery that is intentionally pixelated, in which case nearest neighbor would be ideal. And just another little tip, if you're wanting to change just the DPI value of an image without scaling it, which would be useful for importing your imagery into layout software, then you can uncheck Resample and just change the DPI of your document. So that covers the resize dialog. Now alternatively, if you're looking just to export your work at a lower resolution, you can simply resize at the exporting stage. For example, if I go to File and Export, you'll see we have size and resampling options. So as before, I can set the height to 2560 pixels, then I can choose bicubic for a slightly sharper downsampling, and then go ahead and export the image. So that covers document resizing. You may also notice we can change the canvas size. So what's the difference between the two? Well, think of the document size as your overall scaling. When you resize the document, all of the layers are also scaled relative to that resizing. Resizing the canvas will change the document's resolution, certainly, but it doesn't affect the scaling of the layers in any way. You can expand the canvas, for example, to reveal more space, which is great for adding borders and compositing work. To find out about canvas resizing, there's a separate video that covers it in more detail. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the other video tutorials.